I'm gonna look at Fox News and let's comment Fox News because that we know that's complete shit. Um, so Tracker obtains shocking government document on bias-free language. Okay.
They used to say it's as American as mom and apple pie. Can't say that anymore. Both are banned.
What?
We first noticed this a few weeks ago when
Both are banned? Like mom and apple pie is
maybe
banned?
the single dumbest member of Congress, a member from St. Louis called Cori Bush, used the term birthing people rather than mothers. That sounded like something out of a dystopian science fiction novel.
Well, it kind of makes sense because it's just explaining that those are the people who like give birth. I mean, it's equivalent. I don't know why like I don't know why they make a big deal out of like that. You know, it's the same thing. Like who cares?
But now, in just a
The
few
lefts
weeks, it's
were on
gone
science. That is
mainstream. Now the term
look at that. The lefts were on science. Now that is incredibly ironic. That is incredibly ironic. How many views this app? Man, look at this. Look at this. 200,000 views. Premiered 4 hours ago. 7.4 million subscribers, and these are just completely crazy. Look at the comments. Our enemies are loving how low America has become. Left wants to reinvent nature. That is one step beyond insanity. Anyone who uses the term birthing people doesn't believe in science. Everyone needs to push back hard against this evil virtue signaling. Okay, then all Democrat voters are now abortioning people. Look, they just don't like it's complete like straw manning of what like I don't even know. This doesn't make
birthing
any
people has
sense.
the endorsement of the White House. At a hearing yesterday, the deputy director of Joe Biden's budget office explained that you really have to be a bigot to use the term woman.
The budget requests $26 million to reduce maternal mortality and eliminate race-based disparities in outcomes among, quote, birthing people. I've never heard the term before. Can you explain what it means?
Absolutely. There are certain people who do not have gender identities that apply to female or male.
Oh
So
yeah,
we think our language needs to be more inclusive in how we deal with complex issues.
yeah, that makes sense actually.
This is maybe the least complex issue ever addressed.
Well,
Mothers
actually,
give birth, fathers don't. Children are the product of a mother and a father.
yeah, but you're basically reinforcing the whole binary thing, which is very harmful because precisely because of this binary, you want to force people to act in certain ways. You want to force people to act in the stereotypes of males and the stereotypes of females, and that is causing an enormous amount of harm to people. So, Tucker, you're an idiot once again.
That's not politics, it's biology. And if you're forcing the rest of us to deny it, then you are a totalitarian who's
It's yeah, for now it's no, it's not a totalitarian. It's saying that some people maybe don't want to be stereotypes and like literally you can be a male without being some sort of right-wing idea of what a male should be like.
seeks to control reality itself, which is beyond your purview by definition. And it's not just the budget office that's doing
No.
this. This shows up.
And in any case, like I said, I am in favor of eliminating all in favor of eliminating DIOEC and making the humans hermaphroditic, like long ago our ancestors were, which I think is a much better, precisely because it doesn't create this sort of two-tiered system, which is inherently unjust, inequitable. I don't know. How
document from the Federal Reserve, the internal website at the Fed that its employees read. It's a memo on bias-free language, but of course it's very biased. It instructs staffers not to use words and phrases that may be considered offensive. What's offensive? Founding fathers, man-made.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's incredible. I hate the word founding fathers. I do not. I just say founders. I never say founding fathers because it precisely evokes all that. That is like literal like verbal patriarchy right there. And I really I don't like the term. I don't like. I refuse to say it. Man-made. Yeah. Again, that is just the sort of male normativity, which is again that is unscientific. You know. Like it's also made by women, right? So like if you're gonna be sort of starting to talk about like not being accurate. Well, that is not accurate because like okay, most workers, sure, it was men, but on top of that, like the point is that some man-made stuff is women-made stuff, and you're still calling it man-made.
And singular pronouns like he or her. Now the
What? Yeah. Well, I say it. I prefer it again because I don't like dioecy, so I don't like having separate sexes. So I say it.
Fed is controlling monetary policy. It's also totally destroying the economy, in case you haven't noticed. But right or wrong, it's supposed to be apolitical. Why are they?
I do agree. I oppose quantitative easing, but it surprises me that you are criticizing that when quantitative easing benefits mostly really rich people that whose interests you're basically defending through your whole program.
Trying to control our language because they want to control our minds. But the Fed? Victor Davis Hanson, one of the few people we know smart enough to see what this really means. He's a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution, and we're honored to have him tonight. Professor, thanks so much for coming on. What should we take from this?
Thank you. Well, I think it's characteristic of all bureaucracies that
Look, I'm just seeing if I'm recording this properly. Yeah, okay.
when they can't solve an existential problem, they always go to the triviality as if they've done something.
Right.
Because look at the Federal Reserve. We may have 6 to 7% inflation right now per annum, and when we have 2.8 mortgage rates, that's a gap. And what are they doing? They're looking at pronouns, and the same thing is true with the OMB. We have a $30 trillion deficit, debt, and a $1 trillion annual deficit. They don't have a clue how to handle that, but they do want to focus on these trivia. And it's also
like these trivia don't cost anything, so might as well do it because it doesn't cost. I mean, it costs a little bit, but it costs very little, in comparison to the deficit. And you're worrying about the deficit. Well, how about taxing some people more, maybe, to not have a deficit? Ever thought of that?
I think, Tucker, of the left. They always want to be a cultural revolutionary. So they want to go back in the past and cancel people out and rename streets and buildings and universities and top
Because like those people were like slave owners. Ever think of that?
statues and change the language. That's what the Soviet Union did. And then they think in the present, starting in
Maybe because they recognize that the language is actually intentionally made to oppress people. Maybe not intentionally, but okay, intentionally is wrong, but it certainly it oppresses de facto people, and it does so because it's a result of oppressive thinking.
year zero, and then here we go in the future that according to our plan. So the Biden administration believes that after 1,000 years of usage in the English language, they and their infinite
like the English language has been evolving like a lot, and it actually has, especially for the past 1,000 years, it has evolved enormously. And finally, like in the past few hundred years, the evolution has more largely stopped. It's slowed down a lot more, and that's because it's been much more codified. But language naturally would evolve a lot faster than if we without writing and without codified writing, language would evolve much faster. And also in smaller environments, like in smaller groups, in more primitive environments, language would evolve faster. And that's why I had all these different languages.
genius have invented new words that nobody ever thought of, and therefore this is the beginning of a new, I don't know, paradise or utopia. It's also, I think, Tucker, it's sort of giving an answer for a question that doesn't exist or a solution for a problem that doesn't exist. It's kind of like the Jussie Smollett syndrome.
It's not true. Like, Republicans are always inventing problems that don't exist. Like, literally, they invent all these conspiracy theories about Democrats and stuff, who they conflate with communists, even though, like, socialism has evolved in opposition to liberalism. But never mind, they obviously aren't, like, bright enough to understand that. So, like, that is completely... Who is this idiot who went onto Fox News?
There is no victimization rampant, so they have to come up with these psychodramas so they can feel that, wow, we're a polarized society and we don't have equity.
Well, I mean, I agree that, like, again, there's this issue where, like, some Democrats will just say, like, okay, well, now we've done stuff with the pronouns, and then everything will be okay if we just take care of the pronouns, and as long as there's some, a proportional representation of black people and women among, like, the heads of companies and stuff, which is silly. It's sort of like, easy. It's easy, fake, sort of facile sort of equity. Yeah, I agree with that, except that Republicans basically just want to make things worse. So that is no solution.
Our fairness. But these words were here for a reason. They're specific. I think it's very important that people realize that while the founding fathers, their achievement was not because they were male, but they transcended their sex.
Hey, yeah, but maybe how about you stop calling them fathers if they transcended their sex? Just call them founders, right?
They weren't just chauvinist or racist. They created ideas out of the Enlightenment that
Yeah, yeah, they did, but at the same time, they also created a constitution with the explicit goal of preventing the plebeian masses from implementing policies that would like strip them of, their higher status, right? Because these were sort of like rich people, rich landowners, and that wanted to remain in privilege, and they created a constitution designed to keep that privilege.
meant that you would have the women's suffrage or you would have civil rights because that was the logic of all men are created equal. And they didn't have to do that. There's nothing in the Constitution that mentions race or gender. And so that they were male is, incidental, but it's important to see how they did. I think it's important for us to not say that Queen Victoria or Queen Elizabeth or Madame Curie or Helen Keller was a woman and that's who she was, but I also think that it enriches history to know that they were women and they transcended their situation. So I don't want to go and recreate language and then in an Orwellian fashion and make us all just sort of
Yeah, for some reason, these Republicans always bring up this 1984, which is ridiculous because 1984 perfectly illustrates pretty much Republican mindset. If you let Republicans have their way, you'll end up with Ing Soc. You'll end up with the Society of 1984. That like literally, there's so many things that are literally just like in 1984. The way the Republicans, the way they think, the way they just, especially like that double think where they just completely like shift their points of view, their way of thinking, just depending on what the precise argument is. They do that in so many ways.
collective blah. And that's what they're trying to do. And is there really a problem? Do we have a lot of transgendered people, pouring into hospitals that are pregnant and saying, you know what, I'm going to have a medical crisis if you get the wrong pronoun? Pronouns are helpful. They enrich the language. They distinguish reality. That's what language is for.
Yeah, but you could also say that all sorts of horrible words are also like enriching the language. Uh, you know, this, you can actually get rid of nasty words. You can get rid of like, you don't have to just continually use insulting words that harm people. And so, like, in China, they don't have gender-specific pronouns, right? And they seem to be doing like all right. I mean, okay, you can say like this, they've got the Communist Party, whatever that's oppressive, but it's not because they don't have gendered pronouns, okay? I mean, they just as much have the same sexism that you love, in fact, in China. So, obviously, just eliminating gender pronouns isn't enough to eliminate sexism, unfortunately.
Quickly, do you find it interesting that they are so offended by fertility and nature and the idea that people reproduce, and that's
That complete straw man. It's not true. People are not offended by fertility in nature and that reproduce. You're saying this. It's wrong.
okay? That we men and women come together and create new life. Like the whole thing is repulsive to them. Why is that?
No, it's
Well,
not.
I think it's because it started with the feminist movement that they felt that impaired a woman's future. But I think it also reflects reality, Tucker, that the age when people are getting married, having children, buying a home, buying a house has gone from mid-20s to mid-30s. And our crisis right now is that we're not reproducing ourselves. We're about 1.8 rather than 2.1 or 2. And
Yeah, and that's a good thing because, like, for now, the population of Earth is ballooning, and you don't really, that's creating a huge environmental impact. And what we really don't need right now is more humans.
we're suffering from what? Prolonged adolescence. These children, or they have adult bodies, but they have the minds of children. They don't want to grow up. AOC is
Again, that's completely insulting. Like, what do you mean they don't want to grow up? Like, literally, uh, lots of these people just aren't given the opportunity to grow up. In part is because the prices of housing have gone up enormously. as a result of basically insufficient construction of housing, mainly. So like that's nuts, and also just the fact that the rich people like to invest in housing, which brings housing prices up. So
Good example of a
AOC, okay, so you are an absolute piece of shit. She's like the best politician ever. So I absolutely loathe this guy, and you can just I give anyone who sees this free rein to just like completely trash this guy verbally. Obviously, like don't actually go and hurt him or anything, but this person deserves all our contempt. Okay, he is a terrible, terrible man. I mean, if Tucker, of course, that goes without saying, but now we're discovering that this person, Victor David Hanson, is an abominable dipshit.
person who's suffering from prolonged adolescence. And she said she doesn't want to have children because of climate change.
Oh, right. So that makes you immature, right? You actually care about the whole, like, fucking planet, and that makes you motherfucker! You motherfucking piece of shit, okay? I hope you die right now from an aneurysm rupture, okay? That would do the world a great favor.
So it's a phenomenon. I don't know if it's because of
Oh, and you laugh, you piece of shit. I hope you die in misery, okay? You abominable turd, okay? You are disgusting, vile, subhuman.
$7 trillion in student debt or the economy, but they just don't want to take off their training wheels and go out and experience life and its adventures.
It's not, you don't want people to experience life. You are against like basic income, which would allow people to actually have a life beyond their jobs, and you oppose that, okay? You motherfucker. Motherfucker.
Yeah. It's sad. Even sad for Sandy Cortez, you know, kind of missing the best part, the fun part. I think.
It is.
Victor Davis Hanson, appreciate your coming on tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here.
Okay, and right, and oh yeah, but of course the patriarchy still doesn't exist, right? It's like obviously, and yeah. So and of course liberals are completely crazy, and nobody is trying to enforce you know, particular stereotypes, oppressive gendered stereotypes onto anybody. Nope, that's just all liberal propaganda. Liberal communist propaganda. Oxymoron, but whatever, it's the liberal communist propaganda. Yep.